All right, there, short-term rental Kickstarter folks. I am super excited again to have with me the one and the only Alex Sabio. Um, his stories are really interesting one. I always like to have him to even talk about his story because it's pretty inspiring. And if you have thought about building well with short-term rentals, he will basically be showing us today how it is so possible, and you should definitely jump in to do so. So welcome, Alex.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be back again.
Awesome. 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 Now, can you just tell our listeners, who you are, what you do, what you did, what you're still doing, what you're working on? It's essentially how we're having his conversation.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, everyone. How's it going? Alex Sabio here. Married father of four, live here in Southern California. I've been in healthcare for 21 years now. It comes and goes. It's going to be
Yeah.
22 years this year. I'm the old guy now at work, so that's kind of weird. I'm a respiratory therapist. I've been doing that. And my wife was also a respiratory therapist. We met in school. She's retired, going on 4 years now. Um, Wish I had a better story to tell you guys where I'm like one of the gurus who went from zero to 100 rentals with no money out of pocket in 1 year. But to tell you the truth,
1 year.
yeah, that's not my story. I had a lot of ups and downs with real estate. I think it's because I was in the medical field, and I think they get you comfortable, right? You
Mhm.
have good pay, you have good benefits, and there's really no push for you to get to financial freedom. But it was something that I wanted. Um, and so, like I said, made a lot of mistakes in long-term rentals out of state. Eventually landed on short-term rentals in summer of 2020. Now, at this time, I'm a respiratory therapist. We're working in the COVID units, and we are miserable. I'm gonna let you know now. We are getting slammed, and we didn't know where that was going. And so, my want for financial freedom became a need, and we needed to get out. We needed to find a way because we didn't know whether this was going to be the new norm or what. And so stumbled on short-term rentals, 2020. So it's been like 3.5, 4 years now.
Mhm.
Um, and we just have a small handful of short-term rentals, and you could get to financial freedom there. And we have 7 short-term rentals now in 3 different markets. I do have a fund that owns a hotel. Um, yeah, so that's my portfolio, and that's me.
So here is why I like to talk about Alex's story because he mentioned his timeline, right? So 2020. So in my case, it was 2021, just before I hosted that first conference. I think I was talking with
Mm,
Rachel Gainsborough, who we also interviewed, and I think she sent me a screenshot, and she goes, "This guy just made $50,000
yes,
in 1 month from 2 deals." And,
yes.
and at the time, I was still coming to terms with like short-term rentals and the whole idea of it. I was still like knee deep in arbitrage. So I hadn't even looked at like the ones that I actually bought. And so your story was one of the few that I was like, wait, what? What am
Yeah.
I? What am I doing? RB, what like what am I doing? And um and that was definitely one story that like really opened my eyes, and I think the so hers, yours, and then Neil Shah's, who I also I
Mm,
also also interviewed here.
my
So
neighbor.
like
We own
tell
short-term rentals next to each other, so
right, you guys are like
yeah,
neighbors, right?
we're neighbors. Yeah.
True. So yeah, tell us how you got that first short-term rental. Like basically what got you even looking at short-term rentals in the first place. How did you even start?
Yeah. So before that, I always encourage people to tell your story because you never know who you're going to affect.
Mhm.
And I'm not one to share, especially financial. That felt weird, like sharing, oh, I'm making this much money. But someone recommended that I do it. And I said, screw it. I'm just going to be upfront, transparent. If I lose money or make money. And it kind of, you just have this aha moment where you just want to share it to the world. And that's what
Mhm.
happened with me. And I remember that interview that I did. And like a lot of people hit me up and, oh, how do you do that? I want to do the same thing. But how I got into short-term rentals at the time, I went to I had a handful of long-term rentals, and I really wanted to scale,
Mhm.
and I didn't know how to do that. And I figured, well, I have about a dozen long-term rentals. For me to get to financial freedom, I'm probably going to need a dozen or 200 long-term rentals to get to my financial freedom number. And I had no idea how I was going to do that. And so I figured, well, why not go into multifamily? Let's buy like duplexes, triplexes, quads, maybe an apartment complex. And I started getting into that whole world, and they taught me how to underwrite deals, tax advantages of real estate. Networking was a big thing.
Yes.
And I remember at that time, I said, okay, let me just get out there and network with as many people as possible. And so we start looking for deals. And I remember networking with a real estate investor. Her name is Teresa Decker. And that was my aha moment where she said, you know what, you're looking at apartments, but I'm making $24,000 a month with just 3 short-term rentals. And I'm like, what the hell's a short-term rental? I don't know what that is. And I said, yeah, but what's your profit from that? Like after mortgage, your cleaning fee must be expensive, your electric bill, you must have a lot of wear and tear. And she goes, dude, you're not listening to me. That's my take home. And that was my aha moment. I said, that's what I need to do. That's my financial freedom number. And you only own 3 homes. Like, that's what I need to do. And so I just start networking again like crazy. And I just start asking people, where are the best short-term rental places, where to invest. And people kind of just started pointing me to this one area, which was the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and the Smokies. And I live here in Southern California. I have no idea where this is, what it is, like what kind of market. So I kind of do the whole YouTube thing and just start researching like crazy. And it was weird because it was the perfect storm for me, because I purchased my first short-term rental July of 2020. And there was this really small window where nobody was buying. Yes. Right. We didn't know whether the market was going to fall off the side of the cliff. And at that time, the interest rates are still 3%.
Yes.
And people just started going back to vacation mode, right? Because a couple months before that, the short-term rentals, Airbnb was completely shut down and nobody was making money. And so it was just like a lot of luck, landing and meeting the right person. And there was probably a few people that told me about Airbnbs and short-term rentals before that, but it just didn't register. And for some reason, this one person told me, and it finally registered. So anyway, that's kind of how I landed on it.
It's amazing, amazing. And you make a very interesting point there, because yes, that point was because short-term rentals basically did like this huge dip, right? So March 10 to 17, that week, everything just like shut down and a huge drop. Yes. And then it started doing this, and like everybody wasn't sure which way it was gonna go. Was it just like a little uptick and then back down? Because at the time I was tracking the market for arbitrage, because I was thinking of doing arbitrage. And so like it was like, well, is now the time to get in? So I was kind of following things. But in your case, you mentioned that a few things happened. The market ticked up, the interest rates were still pretty low. And then people were now beginning to travel again, which meant they were also looking for places that, were isolated. Yes. But you were able to basically tap into opportunity even without necessarily knowing that you were doing, because you also didn't have a way to see the future exactly. But
yeah, it was like the perfect storm for me, and glad that I did it. And come to find out, we enjoyed it. And at a certain point, you're gonna have to take a risk, and you bet on yourself. And you're like, you outweigh what's going to happen if I don't take this risk.
Yes.
Right. That's what we're looking at. Well, you're going to work at the hospital in the next 20 years. Oh, crap. I can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, we have to take a risk and do something. And at that point, like I said, we were underwriting a lot of apartment complexes, and we're like, wait a minute, this one short-term rental blows these other 20 units that we're analyzing. It blows it out of the water. And not only that, we're buying a brand new construction cabin in the Smokies. And so in my mind, I said, it's actually less riskier here. So
yeah. That's a really interesting point that you just brought up, which is usually when you put them side by side. I have no shade for those who do multifamily. I began with multifamily as well. But after a while, I started seeing like all the pro formas coming back, and I'm seeing like cap rate of 1.5. And I'm like, Excuse me, 0 cents. Okay. Like that just
Yes,
makes absolutely 0 cents for me right now. Like the
right.
math is not mathing. I don't see the advantage. But there's always that, place in the portfolio for those who are doing different things that you have to like just
Yeah,
kind of weigh what your goals and things are. And you were, I mean, for you, it was pretty clear that the goal was financial freedom.
yeah.
So cash flow had to be good.
It had to be good because I needed my wife to retire
Mhm.
ASAP because our kids are staying at home. Schools are shut down and we needed someone at home, right? We didn't know what the heck they were doing in their rooms. And we didn't know how long that was going to last.
Mhm.
And I needed out right away. And like you said, no shade on multifamily. I want to get into multifamily.
Right.
If you're out there listening and want to do a deal together in multifamily, I still want to talk to you. But the thing is, I love the short-term rental aspect of it because you can get crazy cash flow and crazy tax benefits right away. Then use that to invest in other areas if you want to. So.
So now let's talk about those tax benefits that you just mentioned. Um,
Mhm.
you want to continue your story into the tax part? Because I remember we
Yeah.
talked about this last time. Yeah.
Part of it too, getting into short-term rentals was my CPA. My CPA is Amanda Hahn
Oh, okay.
with Keystone CPA.
Mhm.
And now I hired her a couple years before I got into short-term rentals, and she was telling me the whole thing. Like we planned it out with, she explained bonus depreciation and everything. She even brought up short-term rentals. And like I said, there's all these times that people talk to me about short-term rentals and it just wasn't hitting, and so she brought up, hey, you know what? Your wife, you want your wife to retire, and we can get more hours if you do short-term rentals because it's a lot more active.
Yes.
I said, okay, great, I'm going to do multifamily. Right. I'm still not listening. Right. And so yeah, the first short-term rental, I think we did a cost segregation, which cost segregations are very common in multifamily.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just applied that to short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out, it's actually a little bit easier with short-term rentals because you
Yeah.
don't have to be a real estate professional.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would do a cost segregation. Our purchase price is anywhere from $500 to $800,000.
Mm-hmm.
With those, when you do a cost segregation, which will cost you anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000, you'll get a nice $150,000, $200,000 tax write-off against your W-2 income. And
Mm-hmm.
so me as a respiratory therapist who's working so much overtime
Mm-hmm.
in the hospital, now it's been over 3 years tax returns, we've paid zero in federal income taxes. And I'm cheap. For listeners out there, the one thing is like all of that money for me, when you get these big tax returns, a lot of people will buy it on a car, whatever. What I do is I buy more assets with it that
Mm-hmm.
give me more tax breaks, that give me more cash flow. So it's this nice hamster wheel effect where you have to keep buying more
Yeah.
properties. So
Yeah. So now you said you're at 7.
yes.
Which markets again?
So we have 3 in the Smokies. We
Mhm.
have 3 in the Gulf Shores.
Okay.
One of those I am a partner with 50-50
So,
with my
okay.
little brother.
Okay.
But other than that, we own all the other ones. And we just closed our 7th one in Asheville, North Carolina. So yeah, new market for me. So still learning through that. And we've only been live for about 1 month now. So
Nice. Very nice. Very nice. That's
yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. So if you have someone that's listening right now that's like, you know what? Actually, you know what? Even before I say that, I mean, you basically just said it, but just to kind of highlight it for those who are listening, that you've been taking your like tax returns, for example, and reinvesting. Is that what you
Yes.
said?
Not only that, the cash flow.
Okay. Cash flow
If
as
the
well.
interest
Okay.
rates were still low, I would
Mhm.
refinance and take that equity and cash out and buy more. So
Mhm.
that's where I am. I am in my journey right now. I'm still in
Okay.
growth mode. I'm
Yeah.
still trying to acquire as much as possible because I still haven't walked away from the W-2. The W-2 is a
Mhm.
nice, easy 6-figure earning salary with free benefits.
Yeah.
I like what I do. I'm good at it. And so at a certain point, I don't want to live off that cash flow yet.
Yeah.
So right now I'm just trying to stack it as much as possible, snowball it to more and more properties. So
I mean, you keep just like saying things that keep bringing things back to mind. And that is, people sometimes glorify leaving the 9 to 5. Like I mean, it's most people's goal, but it doesn't have to be what you do right now. Like you said, understand where you are in your journey, right? Build those assets, let those assets build more assets. And then eventually when you think that it's time, you can move on with even more to speak of. Now, let's talk a little bit about the management, because some people will be wondering, like, you work what, full time, or at least
I do.
close to full time, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And now you have 7 properties in 3 different markets. How do you manage all of it?
Well, the good thing is that there was enough cash flow for my wife to be able to retire
Oh,
from
that
her
too. Okay.
W-2.
Yeah.
So she helps out quite a bit. Like she
Mm-hmm.
does a lot of the day-to-day tasks. And then after that, what we found, there's a lot of software out there that aids you and makes it easier for you to manage because we manage all of our short-term rentals from over 2,000 miles away.
Yes. Okay.
And we do visit our properties probably 2 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like whenever we're purchasing another property in that market, we'll go visit and stay for a week and then kind of, drive by the
What's
other
going on? Yeah.
properties and
Yeah.
check them out. Yeah. And a lot of it is with obsessing while you're at the properties to try to prevent problems, or
Mm-hmm.
like you're going to stock the owner's closet as much as possible, so that way you're not having to constantly ship items to your cleaner, or you're buying items that are going to last a lot longer, or you're going to take out items that are going to be a pain where guests aren't going to be able to figure that out. So there's that aspect of it, the setup, to make it to where your management is going to be easy. And then at that point, what you can do when you start making a little bit more money, you can hire virtual assistants. And so we have a couple of virtual assistants in the Philippines that help us with small day-to-day tasks. Even a lot of the software that is supposed to be automated, sometimes softwares fail. I'm gonna let you know right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
they will overlook the software to make sure the software is okay. So
Good, good, good. Now, I know with short-term rentals, there are like all kinds of tools. I mean, you can research, STR technology and be on it for days. But is there anyone in particular that you found really useful, that you call, like, a game changer? I can't do without this one software, for example.
no, I used to think that, but to be honest with you, we've changed so many times with different things.
Okay.
I remember going on YouTube University
Yep.
and
Yep.
diving in before getting our first short-term rental, and did the research and said, this is what we're going to roll with. And then a month later, we said, oh my gosh, that was garbage. Like, we need to change it up. And so I don't like subscribe to it at all
Okay.
anymore, to where I tell people this is what you have to do. And to tell you the truth, I've been telling people this recently. I said 6 months to 12 months from now, the software game is
Something
going to
will
be
come out.
completely different.
Yes.
It's going to be, especially with artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Artificial intelligence, I'm going to let you know, is going to make it even easier for the host. Like,
Yes.
it'll answer your guest for you automatically. What if your property is not booked? Will it turn the lights off for you? Will it adjust the AC for you if they're not there? Little things like that, sending messages out automatically to your cleaners, so that way you don't have to. There's all of these like tools that are gonna come out. Right now we use OwnerRes. To tell you the truth, we hate it and love it at the same time. So, I can't because the people I would recommend it to weren't very tech savvy, and they would hate me. And
Oh,
so
yes, 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 yes. I saw what you're saying.
so I found that I don't recommend that anymore, because it depends on how their comfort level.
Yeah.
And even the tech people, I have a really good friend who is in tech,
Mm-hmm.
and I had him set up OwnerRes, and he hated me.
Yeah,
He said that
that's
was
the one
so
thing that I've heard
ridiculous.
about Owner, is that it had the learning curve is pretty steep, but somehow a lot of people use it, and I'm like, why are you all using that? Like,
Right.
like, doesn't make sense to me. Everybody
Yeah.
says that it's a high learning curve, and yet all of you are still
Yeah.
using it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
don't.
followed the herd on that one. I felt I'm kind of guilty on it, because I was using one that was okay, but it became unreliable. at a certain point,
Mm,
and I felt I was losing money here and there because it was it wasn't
yeah.
doing what it was supposed to. And I said, okay, let me follow the herd. Everyone's doing this, there must be something right. And to be honest with you, one of the things was the virtual assistant that we have today
Mhm.
has some experience with it. And so I said, okay, I feel more comfortable using this management tool because you
Because
are
yes,
familiar with it. Yeah.
that makes sense.
So
That makes sense.
yeah.
Now, virtual assistants, you're the second person so far, actually, no, probably the third on this summit that has mentioned virtual assistants. How do you
Sure.
find them? How do you hire yours?
Sure. Onlinejobs.ph is
Okay.
probably the best website out
Yeah.
there for that. You can create a free account and start looking at job postings. It's going to cost you about $70 to create a profile and start posting listings on there. And so I interviewed the CEO. His name is John Jonas, and
Yes.
had dropped some really good gems on how to hire a good virtual assistant, what questions to ask, how to post a listing, so on and so forth. So that's where I would recommend. I would
Yeah.
recommend using that. There's a lot of other companies that will post jobs or have, where you could hire virtual assistants. But to tell you the truth, a lot of them go to onlinejobs.ph. So they're kind of the middleman. So that's where I would look. That's where I've had success. And that's where I feel like a lot of my friends,
Yeah.
that's where they go. So.
And what do you have them do?
Oh, anything I don't want to do. So the thing is, it's baby steps.
Yeah.
It's really baby steps. So what we do is we give her maybe one task a week, manage it, master it. Then we're like, okay, from this, let's go ahead and improve this. Like here's an example.
Mhm.
So the reason why we hired her, I remember that week, was my door code wasn't created for the guest,
Okay.
right? The software failed to create the door code for that guest. And so our guest was outside the door, like they couldn't get in or whatever. And so one of the things we tell her is, can you make sure the oncoming guest this week, the door code matches their phone numbers?
Mm,
And so, and if it's not there, can you enter those door codes in? So
okay.
then you just start like adding more and more stuff. Oh, you know what? That guest wasn't in your cleaner's calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Go. Can you text this message to this cleaner, because this cleaner is the one that cleans our property.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all of these tasks that you kind of go down the rabbit hole.
Mm,
And the one thing is you want to give them a little bit of freedom to say, hey, is there any better way you feel like we can do this?
mm,
Or hey, this problem came across, how can we solve this problem from it not coming again? So you give them a little bit more freedom to
mm-hmm.
solve problems, and then your business will start scaling. And not only that, they'll write different standard operating procedures
Yeah.
for you. So
Okay. Um, so how many VAs do you have now for the properties?
we
The
have two. Yeah.
two? Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have coverage for 24 hours or just certain hours of the day? Okay.
Just certain hours of the day. Yeah. Remember, I'm cheap as hell, right? So I'm getting to at one point we do want, the goal is 24-hour coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Now, right now, the one that handles like the guest communication and a lot of the bookkeeping stuff, what we do is we do give her 2 days off, but those are like the two slowest days in the weeks.
Okay.
Right. So we kind of front load them on the busy days, but eventually the goal, I think, will be to have 3 or 4 of them so we have full coverage.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I mean, otherwise, I mean, just telling the guests that, our company responds between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. or something like that, they should be fine.
Right. Yeah.
They will be
Yes.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's good. So if you had someone who was thinking about getting into short-term rentals and was still like on the fence, still trying to, decide if it was for them, based on your current experience, what would you tell them? Would you encourage them? Would you discourage them? Would you tell them to wait? Like, what is your current outlook on the short-term rental market, particularly from the standpoint of those who are entering right now?
Sure. I would kind of get to know them and their personality,
Yeah.
because what I can tell you is short-term rentals, like I used to brag about it to everyone, like you're making this much money. And I got a lot of my friends into it. Come to find out, not everyone's business savvy. Like, you know what I mean? Because guests will make you feel uncomfortable. And there's going to be awkward times. You're running a business. That's really what it is. And not everyone can run a business. A lot of people are very good workers. Nothing wrong with that. But the thing is, short-term rentals isn't for everyone. Because you have to have good customer skills, customer service skills. You have to be good at marketing, organization, so on and so forth. Would I recommend getting into it? Absolutely, because I think the cash flow is still pretty good. It's better than long-term rentals. I mean, what else are you going to do? You're going to do long-term rentals. Long-term rentals, the cash flow is so much less. And the thing is, especially if you're a high net worth individual in healthcare, you still need to save money on taxes.
Yes.
Those tax benefits have dwindled a little bit, but still amazing.
Still there.
You still get away with paying zero in federal income taxes. In fact, the amount of money that we generate, I mean, there are times where you could save more in taxes than the amount of money that you're generating. I have a good friend that got her first short-term rental that got a $61,000 tax refund. She barely broke even on the short-term rental, but she was like, I'm happy, you know. So there's definitely a huge community out there that will help you with free advice, you know, to help you get started. So don't feel like you're going in it alone. You could do the whole YouTube thing and just research as much as you want, and you're going to find a lot of good info. But there's a lot of different Facebook groups that will help guide you as well.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, how can people find you, Alex?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on Instagram. You could find me at The Real Alex Sabio. I'm also on Facebook. I have a free community if you're in healthcare. It's called Healthcare Professionals Investing in Real Estate. I try to add a ton of value there. You could join for free. I'll answer any of your questions. There's over close to 5,000 people there that you know, a vast majority of them are in short-term rentals, but there's multifamily people there, self-storage, lenders, realtors, so on and so forth. So yeah, join my community. I'd love to talk to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alex, for coming on and really just sharing those gems. I think you brought a lot of value as usual.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Well, guys, that's The Real Alex Sabio.
Thank you, guys.